Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. This is Bibo's Book Report, a podcast series about a TV show that has absolutely nothing to do with books. But that's the fun. I am your host, Brad.
And I am your other host, Sarah, and welcome to our newest subseries, Remembering Resistance, where we interview cast members about their time on the series.
As you know, we've already done one of these so far, so we're bringing you the second installment today in a very fun, uplifting, and exciting interview. Our guest has worked on a wide variety of projects, from video games to animation, such as Transformers Prime, and to some live-action projects, including This Is Us, Veep, Scandal, and ER.
In the Star Wars universe, you can see her work in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars The Old Republic, Jedi Fallen Order, and as the treacherous Agent Tierny on Star Wars Resistance.
So without further ado, it's time to bring you our interview with actress Sumalee Montano.
How was the food, Tamara?
Amazing. I can't even remember the last time I ate this well.
I'm glad. You deserve so much more than this station has to offer. Now, let's talk about your friend Kazuda again.
I've told you everything. I had a feeling he was up to something, but I had no idea he was a resistance spy.
And your employer, Jarek Yeager?
There's no way Yeager's a spy. He came all the way out here to get away from the military.
I beg to differ.
So joining us today on Bibo's Book Report with myself and Sarah Haas on the show, we have a very special guest from Star Wars Resistance. We are pleased to welcome Sumalee Montano to the show, the voice of Agent Tierny. Sumalee, how's it going today?
It's even better now. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. It's such a pleasure to host yet another Star Wars Resistance cast member, because we want to remember this show for as long as we possibly can, and we love it, Sarah, don't we?
We really do. It has brought such joy in my life, and I'm so grateful for this fun, silly Star Wars show that we all get to talk about today. So, yeah.
I love that the show is called Bibo's Book Report. So, I mean, I can still hear it in my mind when Nico, at the very end of the series, he's like, oh, like he I forget exactly what the line is, but when Tam sends the secret code to have them meet, and like in the place where the place where Bibo lives, and like it's like, oh yes, I remember Bibo.
Yeah, that was actually we have a regular segment on the show called Niku Nirvana, where we talk about our favorite moments of Niku during the episodes. I think that was one of ours towards the end of the show, where he mentions Bibo. He's like, I wonder how Bibo's doing. I miss Bibo.
That's great. That's great.
So great. So we always like to start the show to get to know you a little better and to familiarize our listeners with your story, but could you give us a little bit of a history as to where you started in the acting world and how you ultimately ended up in Star Wars?
So I was born. No, I'm kidding.
Start right from the beginning.
I know. I'm like, well, story time, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. I'll try to make it a little bit abridged. We were talking earlier. I was actually born in the Midwest, in Ohio, but my family quickly moved to Bangkok, Thailand. I'm half Thai and half Filipino. We moved to Thailand, and I lived the first 4.5 years of my life in Thailand, and then we moved back to the States. And I gotta say, I was, in preparation for thinking about this interview, I know one of my first memories of kind of being back in the States or moving back here was literally seeing the lines outside the movie theater for Star Wars Episode 4. And I was literally just like, I was telling my husband, I said, I know that I have other memories of when I was a little kid, but I actually, if I come to really think about it, because there are some memories that people put into your head because they tell you the story so many times, and then you just kind of adopt them as like, oh yeah, that must be the memory. But I actually think the very first memory that I have that I remember was because we had to drive by at the movie theater pretty much every time we left the house, and we would drive by, and I just remember seeing these endless lines, and that Star Wars was the first movie that I ever saw. So that's my and then fast forward, I'm a child of immigrants, and I think as a somewhat typical story of, immigrants really want their children. They value, the security that, hopefully the American dream can provide, and really pushed me to, to study hard, and they really, really wanted me to become, a doctor or an attorney, or at the very least, and not that it's at the very least, but it was just like the unspoken, like, doctor or lawyer, please. And then, engineer and like very successful business person. Those are acceptable too. And I just didn't have the knack for any of those things. And probably the closest thing to acting was being a lawyer. And so I thought I was going to be a lawyer for a while. And I studied really hard. I got bit by the acting bug in high school, and it was all I did as my extracurricular in college. But I didn't know that I could choose acting as a career. I didn't, and I also didn't almost feel right about it, because all of the stories about, starving artists, and it's so hard. And I couldn't do that to my parents, who literally like sacrificed everything to send me to college. And then I couldn't like be like, okay, guys, I'm moving to New York, and I'm gonna be a starving actor, and try to make it in New York. And I just couldn't do that. And so a lot of weird things happened to get me to this, but I ended up becoming an investment banker. And it was actually an incredible experience for me, because it taught me so much about the business world. And I, like, right out of college, I got to experience this crazy Wall Street lifestyle. And I'm like this kid from the Midwest, like this Asian American kid, and like finding myself in all of these, like at these crazy expensive restaurants, eating and wining and dining clients in Madison Square Garden. And I was just like, what is going on? But it was what I needed. It was what I quote unquote should have done. And it was what I needed to do to show my parents too, and to prove to myself, hey, I can stand up on my own 2 feet now. Thank you for everything you've done for me. And so I worked as an investment banker for about 3 years, and I worked in New York, and then I moved to Hong Kong. And then in Hong Kong, that was when I was just like, okay, this is not me. This is like sapping my soul. And I had a cousin who passed away at 19. And her death really, really impacted me. She's my only girl cousin. And when she died, it took a while for me to like kind of get to it, because I was just working so hard in banking. And then I realized, wait a minute, life is too short. What are you going to do? I still didn't think that I was going to be an actor. But what I did was I quit banking. I threw on a backpack and I traveled around the world. And that was one of my dreams, was to, backpack around the world. And I did it. And I was in like Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa. And then like about 3/4 of the way, I took a year to do that. And about 3/4 of the way through, it finally dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be an actor, but I just didn't know that I could do it. And I have a funny story for that if you want to hear it later on, but I gotta get to the end of this one, because I feel like it's taking too long. But anyway, so during that backpacking
we are
trip,
locked into your story. We love it.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. About 3/4 of the way through that backpacking trip, I realized, I think I can be an actor now. And because I had that job as an investment banker, I had saved up enough money that I could start the process without being the starving actor that my parents were worried about, and I could get a day job, and I could start kind of getting back into acting, because I had actually, I hadn't done anything since college. And so I needed to kind of like get my sea legs again and start, I took classes and voiceover classes and stage classes, and just to reacclimate before really pursuing it professionally. But yeah, so it's an investment banker turned actress story.
Love it. Honestly, that feels like a pretty awesome thing, and a reminder that we're never really locked into one thing if it's not the right thing for us, And so I think it's pretty awesome that you were able to make that transition and do that so
Thank
successfully. I'm curious to know, what's it been like to act in so many different kinds of projects and different mediums, from, commercial voice acting to animation to live action to video games and then motion capture and that sort of thing. And what's it like to have such a diverse range of mediums to act in?
I gotta say, I feel so lucky that I can do that. When I started doing voiceover because this is kind of gets into a longer story, but I started off in voiceover because I felt like what I looked like on the outside wouldn't matter as much in terms of what I played. And I had some experiences in the past where, I didn't get cast as Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, and one of my friends, completely well-meaning was like, oh, well, they'll never cast an Asian face, against, a white Romeo. And I was like, what? And it kind of stuck. And then I was like, okay, so when I decided to become an actor, I was like, I'm going to start with voiceover acting because you can't see my face and maybe I won't be locked out of certain things. But the beauty of it is once I jumped into acting, voiceover acting, my agent in San Francisco, which is where I started, my professional career, they were like, well, can you do some on-camera stuff too? And I had done stage plays throughout high school and college, and I was like, yeah, I can, but let me make sure that I'm ready to audition well. And I took some classes, and I made sure that I felt good to represent myself and them on auditions. They sent me out on camera auditions, and then I started booking those. I was like, oh, great. And then fast forward, I moved to Los Angeles, and then I found all the parts that I was getting cast in were nurses and doctors, and it was really funny because on the one hand I was like, see, look, Mom, I finally became a doctor, and then on the other hand I'm like, yeah, but all I seem to play are medical professionals and journalists. And so I it kind of stunted me, I think, creatively. I didn't feel like I could do as many things. And then that's when voiceover came into play, because it kind of reinvigorated everything about my creative soul. And once I got back into doing more voiceover, and especially animation, it was like the whole world opened up. And so I get to play characters that I would never play on camera as a voiceover artist, and, vice versa. I play voiceover characters that you just would never see in the live action world. And I love it so much. I feel getting to play in the different mediums really hones the acting muscle, because it's a little bit different. I always say to people, it's like you can be a painter, but then you got to learn how to paint in watercolor, and then you got to learn how to paint with acrylics, and then you got, it's slightly different. And I often say with mocap, that's my absolute favorite. Well, I should say absolute. It's one of my favorite mediums because it combines everything. It's voiceover. It's on camera because the camera's right there. You're in your close up at all times, and your body's on stage. So you get to move as if you're on stage. Your face is tight like a on camera close up, and the microphone goes with you everywhere. So you don't even have to worry about staying on mic. And it's just fascinating. It kind of tickles the technical part of my brain plus the creative part, and it's really, I think it's really cool. And then when you see the work all obviously come together, it's awesome. So I love them all, but I just feel really grateful to be a part of it. Okay, I got to start answering my questions in shorter amounts of time. I'm sorry about that.
No, we love it. Seriously.
I'm going to get better
we
at that.
Absolutely love it. No, you're here to tell your story. We're here to listen and help other people learn more about you. And it's really inspiring to hear how, even though you kind of felt limited creatively in your live action on-screen roles, you kind of now found your new calling in animation and voiceovers, and you've been in so much on the animation front, especially Transformers Prime for a couple years, Spider-Man, Star Wars Resistance. You'll be in the upcoming Rescue Riders series for DreamWorks Dragons, so which I just learned about.
Yeah, I think it's out already. Somebody actually messaged me or tweeted or something at me, and I was like, "Oh, thanks for letting me know." Yeah, I watched. I actually watched the episode with my kiddo not too long ago.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just so much on your resume looking at it, and it's really incredible to see you again go from this investment banking world, which is so starkly different to what you're doing now, but you're able to really dig in deep and continue having work, and especially a huge range of it. And Star Wars Resistance is just one example of that. But before we get into Resistance, you mentioned mocap. Of course, you were in Jedi Fallen Order playing Mary Kosan, who works alongside Tarful, and I know Tarful is one of Sarah's favorite characters from that game.
Oh, I have a funny story. I have a funny story for you then on that one.
I would love to hear it, and I just really love Tarful.
So, do you want to tell us more about your time on that project, what it was like, and what memories you have to share from that?
Sure. It's, anytime you can work on a Star Wars project, it's heavenly, because there are so few universes that touch and reach so many people and that are so universally loved that, like I'll say this on Resistance too, like when we were, and same with Fallen Order, when the actors show up, there's like we're all fans, so there's like this giddiness that it's so unique, you just can't hide it, and that extra little giddy happiness, it just infuses the whole experience with that much more love and joy. And it's like, yeah, Fallen Order was fantastic. Tom Keegan is an amazing director. He was great. And then just the fact that my character gets to be on a Wookiee planet, I'm like, I literally, like, there's like, what? I'll tell you two little stories. One, when you audition for this stuff, you never know that it's Star Wars, right? Because it's all like they codename it, they change the things. And so for whatever reason, when I got the audition sites for Mari Kosan for Fallen Order, I had no idea. It did say in the description, like, this is for something big. That's what that's all. It said something like that. Like, this is big. This is not like some rinky-dink thing. This is big. And I was like, okay. But for whatever reason, when I was reading it, there was something, I don't remember what it was exactly in the script, but as an actor, I gotta make some choices so that it feels, real and grounded. And for whatever reason, I decided, oh, I think this is Planet of the Apes. And I was like, I have no idea where but like something will hit you and like, okay, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to decide that we're on a Planet of the Apes world. And so I prepped my audition that way. I came in and the casting director and Tom were there and they're like, so, this is Star Wars. And I was like, what? And it was such a funny thing. Although the Planet of the Apes, coming up with that, it's kind of funny because it did help me. Like, I was already like looking up at these big, which I didn't realize were Wookiee characters. So I was like, oh, that did help. And then when we were filming on the mocap stages, Samba Shoot plays Tarful. He was the mocap actor and I believe the voice too. And literally all, like, I want to say a solid third of my time on that mocap stage was trying to do the Wookiee voice. I mean, can you guys do it? I could not do it, but we tried so hard. And Samba would, like, he's so great, super talented, and he would like try to give us all lessons, and I'd literally be like, wait, I'm gonna try it, and you're gonna laugh, and it's gonna be so bad, right? He's like, you gotta, it's like comes from the really back of your throat, and you just gotta open up and then relax. I was like, I can't do it.
That's about me too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
it's as good as any of us can do.
It was really funny because we would all try, and then days later, I was like, okay, finally, I'll give up. I can't do it. But it was so fun to play. Like, to play pretend on a Wookiee planet is just, I couldn't think of anything, like, my mind couldn't think of something more fun than that. And then when it was presented to me, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I remember when I was playing the game and I played it kind of in January, so a little bit later after it came out. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to Kashyyyk. Nobody told me that we're going to Kashyyyk and we're going to hang out with Tarful. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I was like tweeting about it and texting Brad, and I was like, I am so happy right now. And like, obviously your character, you know, really fits into that whole storyline and makes that all come together. And I was just the happiest I had been in a long time playing that game on Kashyyyk. So it was really, really fun to see it all come together.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It's nice. It's nice. It's nice whenever I talk with somebody who is a fan of whatever the project is, just to see how much it makes them feel. And, you know, that's why we do what we do, is to have that connection and to, you know, to make people feel things that, you know, they might not have otherwise. And that's the magic. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of transitioning into, I guess, Resistance.
Yeah.
Again, including Fallen Order. What was it like to come back to Star Wars after, the Knights of the Old Republic kind of game as Shae Vizsla and that sort of stuff a little while ago, and then coming back to it in this new era?
For me, working on video games and then working on animation is different in the sense that usually video games you're by yourself. And like, I love playing Shae Vizsla. Love that they gave me Shae Vizsla. On an animated series, because we record as a cast, or at least partial cast as a group recording, it's just a whole different feeling. I mean, I was just thrilled. It's that same thing I was talking to you about before. Like, like the way that I hear fans say, like, how much they like this element of Star Wars or that element of Star Wars, because, you know, the actors are fans too. So for us, it's just like, oh my gosh, I would literally sit there, because if it's not my scene, then I usually sit, and then, you know, and then when it is my scene, I stand up. And, you know, some actors like to stand the whole time. Some actors do what I do. Some actors sit the entire time. But I would just sit there. And sometimes I would just close my eyes and listen to the scene going on. And every once in a while, like, I can't believe I'm admitting this. So, like, there will be like an action scene going on. And there was one time I thought to myself, I hope they don't realize what I'm doing. And I just sit there and I close my eyes and I pretend I'm like in the battle, and I'd be like, choo, choo. Like, I like move my body and like imagine the TIE fighters coming out, and like, you know, and it's just a beautiful like way to escape. And the action and the adventure stuff was what really, that's one of the reasons I love Resistance.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in that. I know in The Last Jedi, Laura Dern's character, at one point, she shoots her weapon, and you can see her on film saying pew, which I think is one of the funniest things if you go back and watch it. And even, I think it's Ewan McGregor, during the prequels, they always had to keep telling him to stop making the humming sound when he would swing his lightsaber around. And
yeah,
I think that's one of the first things you know, that like, you really are in it when you truly are imagining yourself in that universe beyond just sitting in a recording studio or on the set of something.
Yeah, they'd literally be in a battle, and I would just pretend like I was in one of the ships, just, you know, like semi closing my eyes because I didn't want people to, like, you know, I want to make sure that people are looking at me, and I'd just be like, meow, meow, choo, choo. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Before we get into the actual character of Agent Tierny, you mentioned the fact that working in video games compared to animation, video games is much more of a solo thing. You're on your own, but animation is much more collaborative and you're working with an entire cast of people. And I think looking back at Resistance, one of the things that stands out to me is how cohesive that entire cast is, and also how incredibly diverse they are. And it always seemed like they're having so much fun together, whether it be at Star Wars Celebration or talking about the characters or the storyline. So were there any people that you worked with, whether it be other actors, any of the episodic directors, or any of the writers that really positively influenced you when you were working on this, and also, or even empowered you to just like truly bring out the best in you?
Well, you said it. I mean, definitely as a group, the goodness and the love in that cast is really, really phenomenal. You can feel it. Definitely shout out to the writers and to the voice director, Mary Elizabeth, because she really, like, in sessions, she got me to places that I, like you come in as an actor, you come in, you make, you have your idea of how you want to play it. You make your choices. And then the wonderful collaborative effort is that creative process, and she would direct me, and it would take like what I would think was like, okay, that's a solid choice. And it would just take it and just make it that much more three-dimensional and that much more nuanced. And that's the thing I love about Tierny, is that she's not just a one-dimensional villain, for sure. But to your question, Christopher Sean as, Kazuda, like everyone in the cast is lovely. But I think when you go into a recording session, he plays Kaz. He really takes his role like seriously in the way that he's leading us too, and it's with his positivity and his it's just astounding. And like on Transformers, I was part of the regular series cast. On Resistance, I'm a guest cast, recurring, but it's guest cast. I'm not like not showing up every single week, obviously. They had so many more episodes together. But when you show up as a guest star, it really says something about how the rest of the cast embraces you. You know the flavor and the love in this show, depending on like how people, when you first go there, it's just a different vibe. Most shows are amazing. But Resistance was extra amazing. And I think Christopher really, like, I feel like he went out of his way, all of them, but I've also become friends with Christopher and many others in the cast, but he goes the extra effort to like just imbue the whole experience with positivity, and like we're all propping each other up, and I think that ends up leading to that creates a better product in the end.
I feel like that's definitely something that we can see in the show too, because one of the things I love most about Resistance is just how full and how like joyous all the characters are in their relationships with one another, and just how what everybody brings to their own characters. And I'm so grateful that we got 2 seasons with them, but I wish we got even more, because I just have so much love for each and every one of the characters. I'd watch a spin-off show of any of them, all of them. I'd watch 20 spin-off shows.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that's one of my favorite things about Resistance is the way they develop the characters from the beginning and throughout. I mean, it's masterfully done, and I think that's why we all feel that connection. And because I'm part of Tam's storyline, her too. I mean, just man, the choices that she faces and the way they crafted that arc, and then her choice, making the big choice that she does at the end of season 1, and then how that plays out and seeing her struggle with it. I mean, that's like gold. Like, I mean, as an actor getting to play that, Susie just killed that part, but just as a fan and watching it and getting to be a part of it as Tierny, like that really moved me. And, you mentioned diversity, the fact that, there's 2 women of color, and that's, Tierny and Tam. And it's like, that's amazing for me. I never, having experienced Star Wars since I was a kid, I never had that experience. Like, getting to see a real representation of myself. And the first time I saw Tierny animated, it was pretty funny, because it was during an ADR session. I had seen drawn images of what she looked like, but until you do ADR, then you don't really see, you haven't seen the actual scenes. And so I was doing ADR to a scene, and it was the first time that I saw her, and like the whole cast was there, and they had these big monitors up behind us, and I turned around to watch, and I just literally was, I don't know, I just was frozen there. watching, it was like the little girl inside of me was so happy. And at one point, like the recording process had started again, but I was still looking at the scene. I was so just like, it was like my jaw dropped and I was like, wow. I didn't anticipate what it would do even for me to see myself reflected in the universe. I literally never could have anticipated how much it moved me. And then they were all laughing. They're like, look at Sumalee, she's still staring at her character. Come on back. And I was like, no, I was like trying not to be like, I'm not trying to be like, it is about me, but it wasn't about me in that moment. It was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing this character in this universe. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful too when you put it up against how you were talking about your early acting experiences where you felt like you were continuously getting placed in like these very specific roles, but then later on being a part of this show. And one of our patrons actually mentioned that I believe you're the first Filipino actress to voice a character in Star Wars animation. So
oh wow,
like having that is a pretty cool honor for you. And just to see how far you've come, where at one point in your career you felt like you only had several options to choose from, and now you're a part of this grand universe with this grand cast, and you all come from different walks of life, and to see yourself represented within that universe.
You said it. That's it exactly. It feels a little bit weird to say, or it feels like too, I don't know. There's still a part of me that's disbelieving, but then there's another part of me like, yeah, that's right. This is where this is what it should be, it's so wonderfully inclusive and diverse. And I think that's where we get our strength from, is our togetherness.
So your character's kind of introduction comes at this pivotal moment for Tam at the end of season 1, when she's, feeling betrayed and not knowing where to go. And you kind of come in and push her towards this one choice. What was it like to know that your character was this villain that was coming in to stir the pot a little bit and muck it all up for our heroes?
Oh, it's so lovely. It's so lovely. I mean, as a fan, it's just exciting because that's what makes the story. You can't have the light side without the dark side, and you need you've got to, that's the struggle, and it's just a thrill, like, oh my gosh, I get to represent the First Order. What? That there's that part. And then when you're playing it, when you're voicing the character, like, Tierny doesn't think that she's evil. Like, and that's the fun, that's the fun part as an actor. Villains don't think they're villains at all, and so you get to put on that, you get to play pretend and be like, no, this is, come on over to my side, that this is, we're doing good things. It's not what you think it is. And when I play it, I can't think that that's my truth. Like, I don't think that I'm like, and then I'm gonna double cross her, like, but that's the fun of it, to just immerse yourself in that, and the mentality of, no, we're doing the right thing here for the universe. Like, you should join us.
I was going to ask you, one of my questions we had was, what do you define as a villain? And it seems you've already answered that. And it actually goes back to, I think, how George Lucas himself defines a villain. That he's always said, the villains don't think they're evil, they think they're right. And I think that's why the villains in Star Wars are so layered,
It's so fun. I didn't even realize I was saying something. I was saying something that George Lucas had said originally. I think of that as, just whenever you're researching or preparing to play a character, that's exactly what I've been told. And I didn't realize that it goes back to what George Lucas said. Like, you can't, because if you think you're evil, then I don't know, it dilutes the authenticity of it. You can't, like, I don't think people really go into it thinking that, I'm going to be evil. You like you said, like George Lucas said, you think that you're right. Yeah. And Tierny's delicious. She is so delicious to play.
Yeah. Kind of going into that and getting into your mindset, what was it like to kind of find those rationalizations in your mind and get into character for Tierny? And that was a question that is, based off a question from one of our other patrons, Marie Claire, and she hosts the What Force podcast, which is another great Star Wars podcast.
Oh, good. It's a good question. I'm not exactly sure how I'd answer that except to say, now you put it in my head, Brad. Now I'm like, I just approach it like I think I'm right. I know I'm right. I certainly, I'll say this, I build a backstory for characters that I have access to certain clues from the scripts that I have, and I can build the backstory, based on that. And then as you get new scripts, you learn new things about the character. And so it was interesting to me that, and I didn't know this by the the end of the second season, you learn, Tierny, she wasn't born into the First Order. Like, and that's what I had in my backstory too. So it's always nice when you think of something and you're like just making it up as an actor, and then it like completely jives with what where they were going, because they don't, sometimes they don't tell us, because they're either, I'm not exactly sure why, that I assume it's because they're figuring it out, or they want to keep it a secret. But it doesn't exactly answer your question, but I feel like it gets to the way that I prepare for a character in terms of I have to build the backstory as the justification for how I got to where I am and the attitudes that I have. So it wasn't too dissimilar from Tierny not being born into the First Order and then finding it as a result of things that happened in her life.
Yeah, I think she is such a brilliant character, and one of the things that really stands out to me is how she talks to Tam and the ways that she almost kind of gaslights her in a way. She really says, do you really trust these people? Yeager, your whole life, he's been there for you, but he's truly a spy for the Resistance, and so is Kaz, you just met him. And it's really brilliant, that dynamic. But what I also love, too, is the dynamic between Tierny and Pyre, played by Liam McIntyre. And that's one of my favorite ongoing rivalries. And even towards the end of the series, when they confront Kylo Ren, it's very dramatic. And it's kind of almost like, which one of you are going to come out on top? It's survival of the fittest at this point. And appropriately, I'm glad it kind of came to that head. But what was it like to develop that on-screen or off-screen chemistry with Liam to then translate that on screen, where you really do feel that tension between those two First Order characters?
It's interesting, Liam was in Fallen Order too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he played Taron Malicos, that cool Jedi guy.
So I actually, most of my scenes with Tierny and Pyre, I didn't do with him in the room. So I don't think I actually met Liam until we had a cast rap party, or a rap party, not cast, but a rap party for Fallen Order.
Oh.
And it was,
man.
I think, or no, I can't remember which came first, whether that came first or when we the one episode we did record together was that final episode with Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, it was just bananas, you guys. They had us all in it's like a semicircle, and the mics are set up and each actor's at their mic. They put Tierny and Pyre across from each other at the widest point of the semicircle, and we're doing that scene and then having to do the sound effects of the Force took, and it was literally like, it was so awesome the way, because I know that they plan it that way too, because it helps the, like you're saying, it's like that the tension between us, that
like
we
a
were
tug of war
directly
almost
across from each other, looking at each other, and then to have to, as actors, then like, I don't remember who went first, but like one of us goes first and does the,
yeah,
then the other person does it, and it was so cool. That was really one of my best memories of Resistance, and to have the support of the rest of the cast listening and watching us, and afterwards everyone just like, oh my god.
And honestly, it's one of the coolest shots in the series, in my opinion, that face off between those two as they're reaching for their blasters, and you have Kylo Ren right in the middle lifting them to reach for it. with the Force, and it's such, we watched that shot over and over again. We're like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. And every voiceover actor is different, but for me, like, I have to do that, and like as I'm standing in front of the mic, so like I'm like literally there with my arm shaking, and like to create the noises that I think, or they're like little guttural sounds or efforts, but to create that while we're recording, oh my gosh, it was so fun. And I just am so grateful that there were so many people there at that particular record, and that everyone was just so supportive and giving, and it was awesome. Liam's great.
Yeah, and I think the question about that episode is, how did you feel about your character's end?
I never want her to die.
It was so
but
intense.
If there is, I clearly remember this too from that recording session. I mean, if there is a way to die, that is the way to go out.
Yeah.
In a Star Wars series, to get like force choked. I mean, that is the way to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked by that one, but I mean, it was kind of awesome in a terrible way, but
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the equivalent of, when you're like, I don't remember who got to say that line, but like when I was on Transformers, somebody had to bring back again the phrase "more than meets the eye," or like someone, the kind of those big phrases and moments that everyone associates with the franchise, and then that's the same with this moment in Star Wars. Like, to me, like, just the use of the Force is just, that's it. Like, that's it, and how you use it, and getting to die by that was exciting.
Yeah,
super.
To end the Resistance portion of our of the show here with Agent Tierny. Obviously, the name sounds very similar to tyranny. So, I think that's a great play on words for this character. Was there any intention behind that? And also, how do you think that speaks to how viewers and fans of the show will remember Agent Tierny as she goes down in the kind of pantheon of Star Wars villains?
I know that the name changed. I forget what it was before. But that might have been, when they send out the scripts for actors to audition, that just might have been, they gave it a fake name because they didn't want people to, even though Agent Tierny wasn't established in the canon, or, it was like, but who knows? I do know it changed, but I don't know the background behind it. But I did see that on some tweets or something, like, oh, Tierny, it sounds like tyranny. I love that reference. I think it's very fitting, and whoever saw that, fantastic. I don't know the background of it, though. I didn't ask. I should have, probably, huh?
I mean, whether intentional or unintentional, I think it definitely works, and it definitely falls into the theme of, like, well, Vader is like Vater, which is like father, so that goes into that sort of stuff too, where some of these names, either intentionally or unintentionally, just kind of spark, associations for the audience that helps them explain the character.
I think it's great. It's a great way to explain her.
Yeah, and you've been in a ton of projects and many things I enjoy very much. And one of your recent credits is Star Trek Picard as Daj's mother.
Yep.
And so my family watched it just recently. We love that show.
It's great, isn't it? I love Picard.
It really is.
I mean, I was so happy again to be a part of that. Oh my gosh. Star Wars and Star Trek. What?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's it like to now have been in both, major star science fiction, franchises that, are the top of the top when it comes to amazing science fiction?
It's literally, it's the dream come true that I never thought that as a kid. And even when I decided to become an actor, I never dreamed that could happen. For me, it was always like the dream is to be able to keep on working, just literally to keep on working, to keep on creating things with, people who I admire as like uber creative and talented people. Like, if I can do that, into my old age. And even just until now, like, I don't consider myself too old, but like, that's the win. So everything beyond that is gravy. And this, like, Star Wars, Star Trek is just, it still blows my own mind. I feel so honored and so excited to be a part of both universes, for sure.
Yeah, I would say that's that's a rarity. It's almost like your own version of I guess the Triple Crown, in this case the Double Crown, but I wonder if there is any other.
Yes, no, it totally is. That is absolutely, like, you don't quite realize it, and then it happens, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what? Oh, that's so cool. And now that I have a child, a son, that I feel like, I hope he ends up being a fan, sci-fi fan especially. And, he'll always, if anything else, he will always be able to, like, be like, oh, my mom, like, hopefully look up to me somehow and what I do. But, like, he, can look at Star Trek and Star Wars and be like, oh, yeah, my mama was a part of that. Oh, and I'll tell you this, a little funny tidbit on Picard. There's a scene where you see, I think it's Soji's desk, and she's got all her pictures, like her family pictures strewn on the desk. If you pause really carefully and look, those are pictures of my son, my real son in real life, and me, because he's like, he's part Filipino too and part Asian, and so they were like looking for photos, and they're like, oh, and they asked me if I had any. Production asked if I had any, so I sent them, and they're like, can we just use these? And I'm like, yeah, because they flash on it so quickly. But I thought to myself when I looked, I was like, okay, no matter what happens, my son can always look at that and he can pause on that thing and be like, oh, there's my mama and me.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's so cool and so special, and probably not something that anybody else can say. He's a pretty cool kid, and he may not even know it yet. Yeah.
Yes. Well, he was really insistent. My husband is the big Star Wars aficionado. Like, I will ask him one little question, and like I showed you earlier, he'll draw me the whole timeline, and he'll be like, no, he'll completely launch into lectures about, like, and I'm like, babe, I just asked that one little tidbit. That's all I needed to know. And he's like, well, and then like he'll go on and on. And my son, like, he was so sad that my son didn't want to start his Star Wars experience with episode 4. He was like, no. He's like, I think I want to start off with the animated series, and let's start with the one that Mama's in. So I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And it also, I think it's great because everybody has a different, starting point for Star Wars fandom. Some people, like you, were able to see the first movie in the theaters and have all of that excitement. I was able to see, episode 4 from my couch as a kid. And I'm a huge fan of the prequels. So, that's where my childhood Star Wars was. And the fact that people are coming in through the animated series, from Resistance to, the Clone Wars to Rebels and all of those things. And everybody, it just shows how amazing this universe is and how there is something for everybody within it.
You just kind of blew my mind because, of course, you're young enough to watch episode 4 from your couch, but it just kind of blew my mind because, like, that is such a big moment for me. Like, the scene, the it was the first thing that I remember as like it's a big thing, and seeing the lines of fans trying to get in to watch the movie, I was like, oh wow, yeah, you can, you just watch it now streaming on demand.
Yeah, my dad I remember him sitting me down and being like, okay, my brother's a couple years younger than me. I saw it early as a kid, and they go, if you're really scared by Darth Vader, we can just turn it off. Yeah. So, and that's what my brother did, and ouch, but we ended up getting there anyway. So
that's why my son wanted to start with the animated. He thought that the live action, I'm glad he knows himself, and I'm like, I think that's too scary for me.
That's totally
it's just something different.
Yeah.
And I think because he knows I work in voiceover, so he sees a lot of animated stuff and cartoons that I'm on, like, that's just much more comforting to him. Like, he knows that, okay, this is fiction, they're not really going to get caught and die, like he can figure that out in his head and be a little calmer when he watches. But Resistance, man, he was like freaking out. His favorite thing about it was like, it's like everyone spies and they might get caught at any time. Like it was really cute to watch the series with him and see it through his eyes.
Yeah, and I think that's its intended purpose. As it, like Sarah said, there's something for everybody. And the great thing about Star Wars is we keep on creating and finding new ways to give each and every person an entryway into a galaxy far, far away. So we're super happy to learn about your entry point and obviously how closely you've been involved with Star Wars. So to kind of wrap up the show here, we like to ask each of our guests a list of rapid fire questions. Now, this isn't a pop quiz. It's nothing about Star Wars itself, but more of your, just to get to know you a little bit more too before we close out. So,
okay, I'll do my best. I'm nervous a little bit.
Yeah.
No, it's no pressure.
Yeah.
It's pretty light.
So obviously there's a lot going on in the world right now. And, Sarah and I are so fortunate to have had this time set aside to talk with you. And I think nowadays are really lacking that kind of human interaction, and just moments like this really bring positivity into each of our lives, whether it's us three here now or the listeners. So for you, what have been one of your favorite quarantine or self-isolation activities that you've been doing to, spark joy in your life?
I just started playing Beat Saber.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh yeah.
It was a big choice, man, whether to finally throw down the money and get a VR. I got the Oculus and I was just hemming and hawing. And then I finally was like, I don't know how I'm going to exercise. And I just justified it with I got to exercise. So I bought it, and I just bought the new music pack last night. And this is funny to me. I can't let my son do it because he's too young, and the whole VR thing, we don't know how it affects their development. We'll press start. We'll press play at the same time, and he'll watch it on YouTube. And he'll pretend like he's
Yes, that's so cute.
And we play the same song, and then Mama's got the headset on, and then afterwards we compare notes, or we're during it we'll be like, oh, look at that, did you see that diagonal block? That was awesome. Yeah. So Beat Saber.
Our next question is, out of all of your projects and things that you've done, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
It's impossible. I love them all. They're all, it's like children. You can't, not that they're my children, but you can't say that's one's my favorite. Okay, there is one thing, but it's because it really is my child. But I not too many people know this. I started producing. Cool. So investment banker turned actors turned producer. And my producing partner and I are so excited about this sci-fi film that we just made. We co-produced it with Lisa Brenner and Dean Devlin of Stargate and Independence Day fame, and we're just finishing post-production now. But it's called The Deal. But that sci-fi movie is so near and dear to my heart. So if I have to have a favorite, it's hard for me to pick among the others. But at least I can be. I feel like I'm allowed to be biased toward my own movie that I'm producing.
Well, sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get to see it one day.
Yes. I'm so excited to share it with the world. It's it actually imagines, we had no idea. We had no idea what would be happening now, right? Because the development process started years ago. It actually, it's a sci-fi movie that imagines a dystopian world that's deals with a worldwide pandemic that's even worse than what we're dealing with. But the characters in it and the adventure that these characters go on is so near and dear to my heart, and I hope people watch it and enjoy it as much as all the love and passion that went into making it.
Yeah, another addition to your long list of skills and talents. We're impressed.
Well, this is why I'm glad I became an investment banker. Who knew? It was that the skill set from investment banking and most importantly the friends that I made from investment banking, that helped me. That they introduced me to my producing partner, and that really helped make it that made it possible for me to tell the story that had kind of been living and bouncing around in my head for a while. And then it really, I was very fortunate. It came to be. We were able to make it. We shot it last summer. We did some reshoots not too long ago, and we just are thanking our lucky stars at the timing of it that we were able to get it done before the world shut down.
So what is one of your favorite memories from Star Wars Resistance? Whether it be a moment that made you laugh, a moment that made you cry, like something that really sticks out to you when you look back on your time on set.
I mean, we talked about it. Really, it's either the moment that I first saw Tierny animated, or that final scene with Liam and everybody watching, knowing this was the end of my character. This was the end, toward the end of the series, the final episode. Yeah, it was recording that final episode.
Yeah, definitely a special one.
Yeah, super, super, super special.
So I guess now flipping that to watching the show, do you have a favorite character from the show that you can include Tierny if he's your favorite?
I really do love Tam. I think her storyline is amazing. In terms of supporting characters, every time the Shell folk came on, I was like, oh, I love the Shell people, or the Shell folk. Sorry, they were like my favorite.
They're so cute.
Yeah, they're my favorite.
They're so cool.
Cute, and there's something so awesome in a show that's so much about the adventure and the action sequences, and it's everything, the music, everything just lends itself to that action juxtaposed by the Shell folk. Is just great. Yeah. And that they run the whole, like they're like in the engineering room running the whole thing.
And they're always the least suspecting too. The First Order, when they're trying to look for our band of heroes, the Shell folk come by and they're like, oh, these people aren't doing anything wrong. We'll look at the next room. But they're the ones that are kind of machinating everything.
And how it was one of the Shell folk, it was one of the Shell folk that it was their life signal that fooled the First Order when they thought everyone was dead, and was like, oh yeah, they've clearly died. And it's like, it was the Shell folk again. I love them.
Amazing. Now, speaking to the larger world of Star Wars, do you have a favorite Star Wars character, whether it be in the movies or other TV shows or animated shows?
I'm gonna say Rose Tico.
Yeah, we love
Rose. Rose is also my favorite.
I mean, it's just, when I saw her, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's an Asian woman. I was so happy. She's great.
She is such an amazing character.
Yeah.
And I actually, I'm going to grab it off my board. For Celebration last year, I made little Rose Tico Defense Squad buttons.
That's so great.
I love her so much too. So,
all right. Okay. Can I do a second favorite?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Ewoks from Jedi. I mean, like, I can't, like that, when that came out, and that, where I don't remember how old I was, but I mean, when they were like speeding through the forest in the thing that they stole, the speeder that they stole, I don't think I'd ever felt that way in a movie. I was like, it was just completely overcome by joy and, this like victorious moment of like, yeah!
They are such fun, and every time I watch that movie I go back and I just have so much fun, because I forget how much fun I have watching that movie. Because everybody's like, oh, Empire, but no, man, Return of the Jedi is just so great.
That was me. I mean, my husband has these discussions, and he will we talk about so many of these things, and he's just always like his favorite is Empire too, but I was like, but I like the Ewoks, and he just looks at me and smiles. He's like, okay, that's good. Like, good for you. In a nice way, in a nice loving way.
So I guess looking towards the future of Star Wars, or things that you're catching up on or wanting to see, is what excites you in the Star Wars world most right now?
I haven't watched Mandalorian, so I really, really want to watch that. Yeah, I feel bad that I have not watched that yet. You know what? I'll say too. I'm looking forward to introducing my son to Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to want to start with that, or he feels like he's ready to go into the live action. But I know he can't watch Mandalorian, so he's too young.
That's definitely super fair.
Yeah.
And also, Mandalorian is great for the Baby Yoda.
Yes.
Who doesn't love that Baby
I
Yoda?
can't
So
wait.
that's definitely something.
I've already
to
fallen in love, and I haven't watched it yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
You know what? One side note I will mention, obviously, like I think last week we found out from EA's earning call there might be some more future Fallen Order games. So all I will say is whoever's out there listening, if you can put Mariko-san back in the next Fallen Order, do it.
More
of her and Tarful. We want
more
it.
Kashyyyk too. More
yes,
Tarful,
please. Yes.
That's our call to action right there.
I can't do it.
So to end here, we always love to ask each of our guests, what does Star Wars mean to you if you had to really sum it up in terms of its impact on your life or, our world at large?
That's a big question. I feel like Star Wars definitely represents to me the power of I want to say film, but it's of entertainment. I mean, you can just, especially given what my first experience of it was, just seeing something that can galvanize and inspire and entertain so many people around the world. Like that's a powerful feeling. That's a powerful thing, that's kind of what it means to me. There was a second part of that question.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect answer. I think you hit the nail on the head. Star Wars is just one of those things that truly broadened our imaginations in terms of what's possible.
Yeah.
Both on live action and animation, to be honest. I think Star Wars pushed the boundaries for animation. The Clone Wars was so important, and I think that showed how the future of storytelling can be in an animated world. Animation doesn't just have to be that kind of, oh, that's the animation, whatever. That's its own thing. No, that's as important as the films too. Those stories are just as meaningful. And I think that's a great answer. Star Wars is about innovation.
Yeah, it's just the power of storytelling. Really, it's mind-blowing. You think how much it's affected so many different generations and so many people around the world. Yeah, you can't, nothing really to compare it to. It's really, it's awesome in the full sense and definition of the word awesome.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your day to chat with us and let us get to know you. And our final question is, where can our listeners find you? And what upcoming projects do you have in the works that we and our listeners should know about?
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm on Instagram and Twitter mainly. Both of my handles are Sumalee.com. Sumalee was already taken, because it's actually a very popular name in Thailand. And so I dang it. So I had to change it a little bit, but I'm at Sumalee.com on both. And in terms of where you'll find me next, I've got some huge video game stuff that I can't quite talk about, but I think it's really big. It's a super anticipated title. I'm just not allowed to say that I'm a part of it yet.
Great.
All right. Well, we will keep our eyes out for that.
Stay tuned on social media for the next announcement. I told you already about my movie, The Deal.
Mm-hmm.
Animation-wise, I've got Cleopatra in Space is coming out, and it'll be available on NBC's Peacock streaming service. I love that. I mean, it's like intergalactic talking cats. I play the leader of the galaxy. I don't know if I'm the leader, but on the planet, I'm definitely the leader of the talking cats. I'm how could you not want that? And then it's based on a graphic novel of the same name. And
Cool.
What else? The Casagrandes, which is another show that I'm a part of. It's a Nickelodeon show that focuses on a multi-generational Mexican-American family that live together in this great colorful, full of antics and laughter apartment building, and I love that show. I play the mother of the main character, Ronnie Ann, and it's lovely. It's so reflective of I think, I mean, my son, living city living. I'll say that. It's very reflective of city living, and also reflection of how I grew up with multiple generations under one roof. And it's a beautiful family-oriented show that is just, it just tickles me every time. And it's just such good fun. Good fun.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to check out some of your other work. And again, it seems like you are busy, and we love to see that, especially during these tough times. And we're so happy that you joined us today. It really means a lot to us. So last thing we'll say to you, Sumalee, is may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to that interview with Sumalee. She was such a pleasure to have on the show. We were just so fortunate to get the chance to speak with her. I thought that went pretty well, Sarah. She seems like such a bright, uplifting person in Star Wars, and as is the case with everybody on Resistance, apparently. So that was a lot of fun.
They're all the best, and it was such a pleasure to talk to Sumalee today, and to get to share this interview with you, Brad, and with all our listeners.
Yeah. Truly, we are remembering Resistance, you could say. So, Sarah, where can our listeners find you, our fellow Bibo's Book Report co-host?
You can find me at SCH221 on just about everywhere, from Twitter to Instagram to YouTube to Letterboxd, and also follow me on Goodreads, where I'm doing a lot of reading lately.
Awesome. And as for Friends of the Force, make sure wherever you're listening to the podcast to leave us a written 5-star review. It helps other people find the podcast so they can listen to this awesome interview as well. And as for Friends of the Force, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. We are also at patreon.com/Friends of the Force, where you can get a ton of cool extra perks for only $1 a month, extra series. You can join our Discord channel, all those sorts of things. Thank you to our current patrons who support the show: Anna, Cheryl, Deborah, Donnie, Marie Claire, Michael, Nadia, Neil, Rachel, Sarah, and T. And that is it for this episode. I'm sure Bibo would give us an A+, Sarah. What do you think?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure
so.
Whatever he's doing right now, I'm sure he's having the grandest old time with his best bud, Miku. That's what I would like to imagine. So, With that being said, everybody, we are ones with the Force. We are friends of the Force. And may the Force be with you always.
Bye!
Friends of the Force is a proud member of the Star Wars Escape Pods network. To learn more about our sister shows, find us on Twitter at We Are Escape Pods. The Star Wars Escape Pods network, promoting positivity in fandom.